Hey, Romans here and welcome to another music review. I review every album from a viewpoint of a musician, as I'm a singer, songwriter and a bass player for my own group Jakobay, and we released our debut album called Pursuits in Life. What makes it unique is that it's a heavy prog rock without guitars. Instead you have drums, bass, saxophone and keyboards. You can check out two of our music videos on my YouTube channel. We're building our own monument, Fake the New Kind of Beauty, and a studio live take of A Way to a Pulse.
This is the easiest choice. You need to find a way to oppose and let her go, let her go.
And in the description of all these videos you will find all the information about where is the record available. It's available on all digital platforms like Spotify, Tidal, Deezer, iTunes, Amazon, Bandcamp, but also in this digipack version of a CD with a very beautifully illustrated 20 pages long booklet. So in case you want one, all you need to do is contact me via an email, on Facebook, on Instagram, or you can get one through Bandcamp. And today I'm going to review the sophomore and the new album from Sons of Apollo 2020.
Music review. Music review.
If you're listening to progressive metal, Sons of Apollo probably don't need any introduction. They are one of the many supergroups in the prog territory, but one of a very few prog metal supergroups. And there's of course Mike Portnoy on drums, but there are really some of the best musicians on the planet here. The musicianship is just fantastic, so it's even kind of pointless to talk about that. They've already established themselves with the first album that they released in 2017. This is their follow-up record and it's coming out tomorrow. As of now I've heard it 6 times, so let's dive right into the review. Before I even start with the individual tracks, there's this atmosphere that's kind of unifying the whole record, and it's very dark and very heavy, and these are usually the things I like about music. And I guess a lot of people will draw lots and lots of comparisons to Dream Theater. Dream Theater pretty much created this prog metal standard that most of the bands copy, and there's not much originality left with a few exceptions. But I wouldn't really say this is the case, because even though Sons of Apollo go in that way, the drummer Mike Portnoy spent more than 20 years in Dream Theater. He recorded 10 albums with them, and he was basically one of the creators of that genre. So basically it's like him continuing what he came up with. So in this case it's a bit different. Also Derek, the keyboard player, spent some time with Dream Theater. He recorded Falling Into Infinity album with them. Also what I really like about this album, that there are only 8 tracks. I don't know if this is some kind of an old school preference of mine from listening to the 70s and 80s bands, but I just find it much more interesting when there are like less than 10 tracks on the album, because it kind of feels like every track is important. That's why I have only 8 tracks on my album as well. The opening track, Goodbye Divinity, was already released as a single, as a music video as well, I think. And I like how the first 2 minutes of the 7-minute long track kind of serve as the epic opening of the album. And I also like that throughout all of the tracks, all the instruments are equal and they all are very audible in the mix, which is really great. There are guitar solos, there are keyboard solos, so that has that typical Dream Theater / Deep Purple vibe. Maybe I wouldn't mind a bass solo every now and then, but I like how pretty much every musician shines on this record. Whiter to Black is a classical, serious prog metal tune, and it's also very groovy, and I like the addition of Hammond, which makes the sound more interesting. There are many moments on the album which will remind you of certain moments from Dream Theater, especially the records like Awake, Falling Into Infinity or Train of Thought. And it's exactly the song Asphyxiation that kind of sounds like it came from Train of Thought. It's a really heavy track, and usually one of the trademarks of progressive metal bands is that they combine those heavy parts with more mellow, more laid back moments to kind of like breathe out, to relax. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Like for example, the track As I Am from Dream Theater, I always liked those riffs and those verses, but I didn't like it when the song slowed down because it kind of felt as if it lost some momentum. But this track is different. This track never slows down. It's heavy throughout its whole running time, and I like how it maintains tension. Similarly heavy track is Fall to His Sand with really fantastic chorus and almost new metal riffs. But unlike Asphyxiation, it has some calmer moments in verses. Another track that has been released is Desolate July, and I like that dark and mysterious piano opening, and then it continues as a prog metal ballad of sorts song, and it's a really powerful track. Then we have almost 9 minutes long prog piece King of Delusion, and I like that as the song starts we hear a couple of instruments that essentially fade out after like 20 or 30 seconds until we hear only that very dark, almost classical sounding like piano. There are a lot of badass heavy riffs. And then there's this mid section where we again hear the piano, and there's this dee-dee-dee-dee, that kind of part that reminded me of Dream On from Aerosmith. It's like that strange chord there. Another interesting track is Resurrection Day. When I heard the track for the first time I was like, what does it remind me of? And essentially I was able to find out that it's kind of like Gates of Babylon from Rainbow. And the whole track seems like a very updated modern take on that, or on those heavy serious pieces from Deep Purple or Rainbow. I think it sounds awesome.
It's Resurrection Day. It's coming your way. Resurrection Day. It's coming to stay.
The album ends with an almost 16 minutes long epic New World Today, which seems to be covering everything we've heard on the album so far. At the beginning we hear textures and drones that create a contrast to what we've heard on the album for the most part. Eventually the song reaches almost like a thrash metal territory. There's a lot of stuff happening instrumentally, and I like that subtle but very epic climax that this track has. Even though they don't really bring anything new to the table, I think it's a very solid album, and I would even say that if you like Dream Theater, this is a must for you. And personally, I think that this album is much better than the recent offerings from Dream Theater. It's a really very solid album, and for me personally, it's really Jeff Scott Soto, the singer, who is pushing this band forward. And Jeff Scott Soto is just one of the best singers, and he's really selling the record, so that's what I really like about it. Have you heard this album already? You can let me know in the comment section below whether you agreed or disagreed with me. If you're a fan of Sons of Apollo, you can let me know how well do you think it compares to their debut album, maybe how well does it compare to the other projects from Mike Portnoy. You can follow me on Facebook or on Instagram. You can find links to both in the description of this video below. If you like this review, don't forget to like, to share, to subscribe. You can check out my own original music, my live performances, my worst to best series, and quite a lot of other reviews as well. Thanks a lot for watching.